Okay guys, so those of you who have seen my HD60 review already know that they basically told me my processor is not powerful enough to handle the streaming software. So what does that mean? One thing. New PC. Okay, so last night I took apart my computer and my computer case. Got everything ready to go, and I cleaned up my case completely as I kind of overtook the kitchen here to do that. It's been drying here for about a day and a half or so. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to be using my old case. That's about one of the only things I'll be reusing, because honestly I just could not find a better one. So I will put most of this back together and we'll get going on the build next. So what I'll do right now is I'll go through each piece really quickly and go through them more in depth as we put them into the case. Now we'll start off with the case itself. It is a Cooler Master HyperX, and this is my old case that I bought 5 years ago or so when I originally built my PC. Actually, those videos are still on my channel under the vlogs playlist, and I just couldn't find anything that I liked better out there, honestly. I looked at the Stormtrooper, but I didn't like the fan sizes. What I like are these big monster fans that are like 200mm or so, because what it does is it provides a lot of airflow at a very low speed, so it becomes quieter. And still, this case is still the best for the largest fans. You get a 230 in front. You can put up to two 200mm up top and a 140 in the back here. And then there's also the side panel that has a 200mm fan blowing straight onto your graphics card. And there's a lot of cases nowadays that don't even have a side fan anymore, which I kind of like that more because the airflow, obviously. So these are some of the pieces from my old PC, my original hard drive. That is not going back in, but these two hard drives will be going back in as spares and to keep videos on and stuff like that. My old processor, all my old memory, even my old graphics card that I still kept the box for, which was a GTX 770. That's been updated since that video of my original build. And my sound card. This will actually be going back in because this is a Asus Sonar Essence STX, and it's still one of the better sound cards out there, so that will be staying. So two hard drives, the sound card, and actually a CD burner will actually be going back in. So what do we have for the new build? Well, all fans will be replaced in the case, and as you saw, I completely cleaned the case, every nook and cranny. It looks really good. It looks pretty much brand new again, which I'm very happy with. But here are all the fans to replace all the old ones. The motherboard is going to be an Asus X99 Deluxe. We have 32 gigabytes of G.Skill RAM, DDR4, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to use these yet, but these are actually memory coolers, air-cooled, obviously. So we'll see what the temps come back with the memory after maybe overclocking a little bit. And a 1000-watt power supply by EVGA. And a Cooler Master Nepton 240M CPU cooler. This is a closed loop CPU cooler. A 1 terabyte Samsung 850 Pro hard drive. The new Intel Core i7 5960X Extreme 8-core CPU, a Blu-ray burner, and the new graphics card, which is an GTX 980. So we're looking forward to putting this all together and getting some better performance that hopefully the Elgato will be able to do better under. So if it doesn't do any good under this kind of a setup, I don't think it ever will. The only thing that I have not received are some special filters that I did order to replace the filters that are stock on the HyperX case, which is the front intake here has kind of a weird kind of filter inside of here. It's like a mesh, but it really doesn't help with dust at all. there's two on the very top panel that obviously isn't here, and then there's one that goes on top of here to help with the intake for the power supply. Okay, so first up is the Asus X99 Deluxe motherboard. And the main reason why I pick Asus is I've always had really good luck with Asus, and I really like their boards. But in this case, they do have an advantage over the competition with their X99 boards, and that is being the CPU socket. They actually have more pins than any other competitor, and that really helps with cooling the CPU and overclocking it, and being able to get those extreme gigahertz that some people are crazy about, which I'm not going to be overclocking too much, but there are some extreme overclockers out there that would be really happy with any of the new X99 Asus boards, because they have that extra, they have those extra pins in the socket. Now what we have with the motherboard, of course, is the 3-way SLI, which we won't be using because I only have one graphics card. I don't need SLI. We have a ton of serial ATA cables for hard drives, optical drives, anything like that. And they're all 6 gigabytes. I don't think there are any 10 for the express serial ATA, because the board does have some express serial ATA sockets. To the side real quick. We have, of course, the pins that come with just about every board nowadays. It's very simple to put your, they're basically for the control panel up top on cases, that then you just plug them directly onto here and then directly onto the motherboard in their dedicated spots. And we have, I'm not exactly sure what this is for. It looks like an extender or a splitter of some kind. Not quite positive what that one's for. We have a temp sensor, obviously for figuring out your temperatures. The I/O shield. And this is a high-speed Wi-Fi antenna that actually mounts to the back of your board. Let's see if I can find the spot real quick. That will actually mount to these 3 right here. If you want to do an extreme speed Wi-Fi setup, personally, I don't really care to set up with Wi-Fi with my main PC. For my experience, it's always better to have wired. Some little extra screws, probably for this mounting bracket right here. And this mounting bracket connects to this board right here, which is an M2 board that just plugs right into your PCI on your motherboard. And if you don't know what M2 is, they're basically solid state drives, and they kind of look like memory sticks. And this technology has been around for quite a while, but usually just on laptops. Now, main PCs are starting to get into that a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised in the future that this is how we're going to be hooking up our hard drives. Of course, if Samsung and other companies have any say about it, that won't happen, but it's always nice to have. There's also an M2 slot on the motherboard itself specifically for that, and that's kind of an extra. And this is a fan controller that will allow you to add up to, I can't remember how many extra fans. It looks like maybe 4 extra fans, so that you can control them directly from the motherboard, which is also nice. And there's actually software in these new Asus boards that will let you control the fans manually. And of course we have features, user guide, and of course they always have to bring stickers, you know, gotta have the stickers. Of course your software for all the drivers and everything. Yes, and here's a good picture. of exactly how that bracket goes on onto your motherboard behind the card for M2. So kind of like a quick install guide here of where everything goes, how they recommend setting RAMs. So this is a good little fast kind of setup guide, how to place your graphics cards and what slots, what configuration, all that good stuff. That's everything that comes with the motherboard. You know what? I don't see any kind of screws, except for that hardware screws that came for the M2. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this installed. Alrighty, we have the motherboard in, nice and hand-tighted. And next, we'll take a look at the CPU. I already have it out of the box. And this is one of the few times heatsink does not come with one. I think people kind of understand that, you know, they kind of like to buy their own. The stocks have never been any decent anyway. So, here's the new chip. The brains of your computer. And the first thing you will see is this little arrow right in the corner. I'm not sure how well you can see that without glaring. What that will line up to is this little arrow right there. So I think we can do this one-handed. Should be easy enough. Take the bars off. And the plastic cover will come off, actually supposedly on its own, once the processor is in place. It'll pop out. It's a very different design, to be honest, and it's kind of weird, but okay. Beautiful, nice new chip. And it looks like it's being put in backwards, but it really is not. There we go, there's one. Now this thing should pop right off. And of course it says, keep this with you at all times, just in case you ever have to return the motherboard for any reason, which we hope that doesn't work. And this will feel awfully tight, and believe me, it scares me out every time that this will break, but it will not. There, now all we have to do is install the cooler. Cooler Master Nepton 240M. Now there's an actual reason I bought this versus other competitors. For one, let's take out the whole contraption here. All the hardware, most of it you won't need. The fans, all the instruction book, and what's inside the instruction book. Looks like more information. Warranty information, okay. Warranty information, the two fans here. And the cooling block and the radiator. Now this is a closed loop cooling unit system, CLC for short. Now there is a great reason why I went with this over other competitors, like I was saying earlier. One is the pump from Cooler Master. They completely designed their own pump, totally from scratch. And right now, currently on the market, it is one of the better pumps out there for the water flowing through the pump. It can create a lot more push with the water than any pump so far, or close to some of the higher ends. And these fans, that Cooler Master, they completely redesigned these fans. You cannot even buy these individually right now. They are designed specifically for these closed loop cooling systems. They have a very high static pressure rate, which is what's needed for the radiator. And they're designed to be extremely quiet. And they have some really good ratings out there. So this is the main reason why I went with Cooler Master. My old cooler closed circuit, closed loop cooler that I had on my last build, my old build, was a Corsair. But Cooler Master really has taken some nice steps ahead of their competition. So we are going to install this, but this is going to take a little time and a couple hands to do. But before we do that, we'll quickly go through the hardware that comes with it. And out of all this stuff, I can open this one-handed. Out of all this stuff, probably need maybe 4 screws for the new 211 socket, but you have this sound dampener. This will go between the radiator and the fans. It'll make it even quieter. They do give you some compound grease, thermal paste, but I did buy my own, which I prefer better. Arctic Silver, basically. You'll have many arguments and opinions as to which paste is the best, but this is one I always use. Yeah, it used to be, like on the old build, you'd have to have this back plate on, but with this new 2011, you're not going to need this at all. And let's see, what are the ones I'm going to need? Extra long screws, depending how you want to mount your fan. Is if you want to do a push-push configuration, push-pull, I should say, push-pull, or if you just want to keep it as is. And you will need these brackets to go onto the block that will screw onto your motherboard. They just go on the edges. You'll have to screw them actually onto the block itself, so you can screw them directly on. Oops, backwards. I'm trying to do this through the lens here. And that's basically how these will work. So we will need those. And we do have a CPU fan splitter. Basically, these two fans will connect into here, and then this end will plug into the CPU fan port on your motherboard, because there's only one CPU fan port, and this way your motherboard can control 2 at once. And it should be all we need. And this is what I'm looking for. Instead of using the back plate, this is all we're going to need. They will screw in right in these 4 corners. Put the block in, put the radiator in, and then I can actually put the top of my case back on, which will be nice. So let's get started on that. Alright, with the help of my husband, we have the radiator with the sound dampening gasket on and the 2 fans that connected to the top here. See, one there, and there, and over here. Now this is kind of in a push-pull configuration. I have 200mm fans on top here, and the only thing left to do will be to put the block on. Alright, we have the side mounting brackets on. Very nice, easy installation. Just make sure you take off the sticker here. I'll do that real quick. Now we're ready to put on the pump. And there's very opinionated people as to what is the best way to put thermal paste on, but the line method has always been true for me. So we will do that and try and push this thing on. And you just want to line up the screws. I'm trying to do this one-handed, so very carefully. Actually, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this one-handed. So once I have this installed, I'll be right back. Alright, we have the pump installed, the block. Now, up top here, I actually have two CPU fans. A CPU fan, the main one, and the optional. Now what I did, got the two fans on the radiator, plugged into the splitter that's coming through, and we're going to plug this one into the main CPU fan. I can tuck these cables in later. Can't quite see that well. Okay, and we definitely need to plug this in because this operates the pump. And I'll probably tuck that back in there at some point. Now with the top 200mm fans, with a half-X case, the normal fan screws don't work. So in this case, it's nice that Cooler Master gave you extra screws specifically for this reason. So if you get the half-X case, make sure you never ever throw away any of your screws. This is a prime example of that. So next, let's pull out the power supply. EVGA 1000 watts should be plenty for what I'm using the PC for. Now they have a nice little carrying case because this PSU is modular, and that's how my last PSU was. And once you go modular, you will never ever go to a wired PSU again. Instruction book, kind of like the basics. So let's take a look at some of the wiring. Of course, the power cable. And they come with a bunch of possibilities for wiring. All the red cables are for graphics cards. So you have definitely plenty of cabling if you want to set up a 4-way SLI. It's definitely how many red cables do you want? Quite a few. So you have Molex, which I don't think anybody uses anymore. There's even a old style floppy. Well, this one will be going into the bag. Okay, we have our 4-pin and 8-pin motherboard connection, and serial ATA. Quite a few of them. There's 3 on one cord, looks like. And we have another 8-pin, 4-pin. Some very nice Velcro ties. This will be nice. I love Velcro ties over zip ties. I will take them any day. And it looks like we have an adapter for 24-pin for the motherboard, and a couple screws to screw it into your case. Over here we have more serial ATA and your main motherboard connection, 24-pin, 8-pin motherboard, which is quite thick and heavy. My goodness. They also have labeled on them CPU. The serial ATAs, or that's Molex. I don't think the serial ATAs, no they don't. Serial ATAs don't have anything listed on them. It's kind of cool. And we have more serial ATA, just 2 on this one in case you want less bulkiness. More Molex. I suppose you could hook them up with fans, and more serial ATA power. So you have quite a lot of options here as far as cabling. So let's bring out the power supply. Just one sec while I get that off. And where is the opening? Oh wow, it's Velcroed. Look at this, fancy, fancy. Very nice, typical modular configuration. Get the case off. ECO off on, or aka echo. Of course, your power button, you're going to make sure that's on. But you certainly have quite a lot of cabling that you can use at once. This is going to be for your main motherboard, 4 serial ATAs, peripherals, and CPUs. And this is all for your graphics cards. Everything in red is going to be for graphics cards. PCI power, basically. And this is actually going to match my case pretty nice. I didn't intend for that to happen, but since my case is going to be red mainly, it should work out nice. So I'll go install that, and we'll come back when that is done. Power supply is now installed, and the nice thing about this case too is there are rubber like grommets down below here, so that's another noise dampening feature of the HyperX case. And now what we can do is finally put this top back on, which I already re-threaded the wiring through the holes. And we'll just snap here. You can see some of the filters things, not with the big holes, but there's a very fine, very small holes, but not small enough to actually capture dust that comes with the case. And that's what I'm hoping to replace once that's done. Make sure we got all the cables coming through nice and tight. And nice front panel. Even though this case is kind of old, it's probably they've been selling this case, I think, for about a good 6-7 years now. And to still be on the market is definitely something to say. So, nice 3.0 USB here. We got two 2.0 USBs, and everything else will hook up with the motherboard. And the control panel up top has a cover, your power button, reset, and your fan LED. So you can turn your light off if the front fan that you have, if you ever replace it, you'll have to try to find a fan that comes with that kind of a feature, where it has that extra wire that it connects to this one, which is the control for that fan LED up on top. So next, let's take a look at the memory that we'll be installing. G.Skill. I always liked G.Skill. Now, with the DDR4, with most of these motherboards, they're quad channel, and they have 8 slots for memory. So I have 8 sticks of DDR4 2666, kind of in the middle, I guess. So these should be plenty fast. So it's a total of 32 gigabytes all added together. So we'll get that installed and come back. Alright, we have the memory installed. Lovely 32 gigs. Should be plenty for now, hopefully. But while I was doing that, I took the fan controller card that comes with, let's see, where can I find it? Right here. That comes with the motherboard, and it just mounts with the mounting brackets that come with it, just to the side of an optical bay drive. So that's real nice and easy, since I'm going to need more fan inputs, basically, and everything will be controlled from the motherboard then, or with the software from the motherboard. which will be really nice, so I don't have the fans going high RPM at all times, which can be kind of a pain. So I think I'll have the top 2 fans going directly into that, which will be nice. And next, I guess we will try the graphics card, the GTX 980, made by MSI. The reason why I picked this one was it was pretty much the best bang for the buck. I already took the box out of the box, and looks like we have, I'm not sure what this is. Quick user guide, and drivers probably, yep. We will need that. It'll probably be a full day of installing drivers, BIOS updates, and Microsoft updates. Basically just a gaming series showing all the gamers. And we have a 8-pin to 6-pin? Yep, 8-pin to 6-pin adapter. Oh, on a quick side note too, on the motherboard, this one, let's see, where did it go? This one cable that I wasn't sure what this was for. This is actually for the fan controller that I just showed you. It's 5-pin. There is an actual spot for this on the motherboard, which is right there. It's a 5-pin. That one end goes to that, and the other end goes to that fan controller, so that the motherboard can read it. And its software, once you get going with the OS and have everything installed, we'll be able to monitor your fans straight from your desktop, which will be very nice. So, we found the mystery on that cable. Open this one hand. Now I'm going to try to slide this out with one hand, very carefully, mind you. It's kind of loud, I'm sure, but there we go. Always check for plastic stuff to take off. Fans look nice. Look like they push a lot of air. Of course, you got your covers. And it also comes with a DVI to VGA adapter, if anybody still uses VGA. There's your DVI. And PC port. And then a second one. HDMI. So if your monitor supports display ports, you have 3 of them actually. There are no adapters that come with this for, say, DisplayPort to DVI or anything like that. You may have to buy additional cables for that. But my monitors do not actually have DisplayPorts, so I'll be hooking up one with HDMI and one with DVI. Maybe in the future I'll update my monitors to use DisplayPorts. But until then, it is not needed. And always take off the plastic, obviously, on the ends. And this is, of course, for SLI. And we got 2 8-pins. Gonna be kind of power hungry, I guess. So we'll get that installed and be right back.